Yeah.
Profit first at the bottom line is super simple. It is literally the envelope method. Like if you've ever heard of the envelope method in your personal finances, or if you need a budget, things like that. It's very much similar, but just for business. You're literally opening business checking accounts and naming every dollar instead of having the big black hole bank account where your money gets sucked in and sucked right back out, and you never see it again. Set up specific bank accounts.
Welcome back to the Real Estate Reserve Podcast. I'm Jason Balen from Hard Money Bankers, co-host Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse with another great show for you. In a second, we're going to bring on David Richter with Simple CFO. He owns a fractionalized CFO company. Not sure if you've heard of that topic or term before. I certainly have. I see ads for it all the time. It's definitely something that's always been interesting. So definitely looking forward to this chat. And, I know a lot of our audience and listeners and viewers who we cherish so much are mostly in the real estate investment space, and his company focuses on the real estate investment space. So it's going to be an interesting conversation, Ian.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I already have like a long list of questions, mostly from a personal standpoint. But yeah, we just finished up our mastermind, and one of our guys was like, I need help. I was doing bookkeeping like this and that. We're like, you should really just hire a fractional CFO if you don't want to do it. And then it's like, well, you tell someone to do something, but then you don't do it. And then I'm like, well, I look at our entity, and it's like, well, my business partner acts as the CFO, so I look out from that standpoint. But you never know; there might be a day or time where you need someone like that to step in. Guys, before we bring David in, if you get any value out of this episode, please share it. It's the best compliment we can give our guests, because again, here we are. We have another guest that's a real person doing real things, not gurus. We don't care about the likes or the subscribes. We care about getting this content out and helping our guests, because there are other entrepreneurs just like us who are grinding out, doing the right thing every day. So if you get any value out of this, please feel free to share it. And if you are following along on the $50 million challenge over at CRE-syndicate.com, we're still actively moving. I am running out of time really fast. We're getting ready to close our next $10 million asset of net value. So knocking off goals, but it's going to be an interesting end of the year to see if we can hit it. So with that being said, enough about us, and let's bring in David. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, we're in hoodies, and you're down in sunny Florida, where it's probably still nice and warm, right?
Yes, it is. Got my short sleeve shirt on here, and it's nice and 75 or something out today.
Dude, it's the same weather that's going to be up here today, Ian. Like, we can't complain.
Yeah, you're right. He just doesn't have to deal with the 40-degree morning. That's all. So,
correct. Yeah.
So, but it's all good. It's all good. Dave, you just want to quick introduce yourself so people can find out a little bit about you?
Yeah. So I'm David Richter. I own Simple CFO, so that fractional CFO company. I also wrote Profit First for Real Estate Investing. So if you've read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, I wrote the real estate investing version of it. So teach that a lot and help people with that. I'm a real estate investor by background until I started this company. So was a part of about 850 deals between wholesale, turnkeys, lease options, rentals, all those type of stuff. And that's what ultimately got me into what I'm doing today, because I saw that even though you can do a lot of deals, doesn't mean you're always keeping a lot of money. We were doing 25 deals a month at our highest point, but spending 26 worth out the door. And that is a recipe for disaster. And it wasn't just us going to other high-level masterminds and events, and everyone was making money but feeling broke. So that's why I got into the space I'm in, because I want to give clarity and people an actual net profit, bottom line, put cash in their pocket. There's a little overview of who I am.
No doubt. Amen. If you can't count the cash, if you don't know where it is, you don't have a business. And that's an important role that most real estate investors just don't know. They do all these deals, and at the end of the year, they're like, oh shit, like in my head, I thought I made all this much money, but in reality, I didn't.
Right.
So they're certainly aware of how that works. When you were operating your real estate business, were you acting as the CFO? Were you more kind of on the back end? Is that what attracted you to this?
So I started in that business when I was really young. I was probably like 23 in that business. So I worked my way into that company because I had done a couple deals myself on the side, and read Rich Dad Poor Dad in college. Then got hooked up with this company a few years into it because I wanted to see an actual real estate company. And through that, I got to sit on that leadership team for a few years. And I sat in lots of different seats: marketing, sales, transaction coordination. Got, direct to seller up and running after the HUD market dried up in our area. So did a lot of different things in that company. The last seat for the last year I sat in was the finance seat. And I got a lot of hands-on training from our CPA. And I, back then, because I didn't go to college for bookkeeping or accounting, so I literally just asked my CPA a million questions, like, how do you read this profit and loss? What's the N stand for in P&L? It's like even dumb questions like that. Like, I was just so green, so I had no idea what I was doing. So, but then once I learned it, because I picked up on it very quickly, I was able to read the story of the business, which is the numbers, and the numbers sucked. Like I said, we were doing all these deals, but then I was seeing our bottom line and the actual cash and the cash position, and it's like we're going the wrong direction. Like we're running the wrong way enthusiastically. Like that is not fun. So that's where that gave me just a very big insight into how to read the small business's story and to actually see, like, okay, how can we actually turn this around? I wish I had a good story from that company, but I don't. Like we actually had to part ways with, there was 25 people and about 20 people left, during the middle of the year, one year, just because it couldn't support it anymore. And like no one was, it was not a healthy environment. I love the guy that started that company and that was the owner. He taught me a lot what to do and what not to do in a small business. So I'll always credit him as just being a very big catalyst in my life. But that's where I saw just, it wasn't just him though. There was a lot of other people in our space and in our industry were in the exact same position. And once we started opening up, they would start opening up too.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because we talk about it a lot. A lot of people can do one deal and make money at it. They can maybe do two deals at a time, make a lot of money at it, but then everyone's like, "Scale, let's go." And then they don't make any money at it because now you got fires everywhere. You don't have systems, processes, or any of those things in place. That company that company number one, we'll call it, that was failing, I guess in your opinion, is kind of how you showed it, or it ended up failing. That company there, like, what do you think? You start looking at these profit and losses. Like, what did you identify? Was it more of a cash flow issue, or was it more of a systems and procedures on the front end side of things? And how does that relate, you think, to most real estate investors' business today?
Our number one thing was our payroll ballooned. Like it was like over 60% of our entire revenue, and like a healthy payroll is about 30%, 20 to 30% of what you're bringing in top line of like your, or at least your gross profit if you're a fix and flipper. And the other thing I would say that is very relevant was that we had all that payroll because we did a lot of exit strategies. We did wholesale, turnkey, fix and flip. We had rentals and lease options. So we had to, each one of those exit strategies is like its own business. So we were using the core company's employees to do all these different things, and everyone was getting spread too thin. Then we needed help, but the help that we were hiring was for this one area, but it wasn't enough to support itself individually. So it just got to where our lack of focus on on what we were actually good at, and then our lack of focus on the actual deal versus cash coming in the door. So those were our two biggest things that we saw. And that's why you asked me even before the show, like, are you still in real estate? Are you still investing? I'm like, no, I sold everything that I had. I had rentals, I had stuff like that in the real estate game. And I sold it to focus on the business I am today because I was burned out back then of like being spread in too many directions and doing too many things. And that's proven very effective. Like we have 25 CFOs on the team. We're working with over 120 clients on a monthly basis. It's like this is where I wanted to help people at a deep level. So that's where on the first, flip side, it was our lack of focus and lack of the focus on the actual profitability as well too.
Well, so define kind of what a fractional CFO does.
Yeah. I would define it like, let's think of a car. In a car, you got the rear view mirror, right? It's like that's what a bookkeeper CPA does a lot of the times. They're helping you see what's happened. Where a
Yep.
CFO to me is like a GPS. They should tell you not only where you've been, where you are today, and the shortest route to get where you want to go. Because a lot of people say, oh, I want to get to 10 million or I want to get to a million or whatever it is that is their goal, but they don't have a clear plan of action. And especially when it comes to the actual finances of the business. And it's like, here's the shortest route to where you want to go. as a business owner. On the practical side, what does that look like? Like, number one, taking the CFO hat off the owner, because if you have a bookkeeper, or even if you don't, you're wearing that CFO hat to manage whatever's going on with the numbers. Number two is cash management, like making sure you know where every dollar is going and being intentional with that. Like, that's what a CFO is there for as well too, is to make sure you have actual cash profitability. Then we build a dashboard for each of our clients, and that's what most CFOs out there as well provide, is making sure you have insight and optics that matter to the business owner, not just the financial statements, which are good in and of themselves, but does the business owner actually speak the language of business? Do they speak accounting? If they don't, we have to interpret that and have to make it as simple as possible, because the owner's out there to get the deals done, to get the deals in the door, to grow the business, to build that culture, to build the company. And we're there to make sure that, hey, you understand what all that activity you're doing, how it translates into bottom line dollars, and are you on the right or wrong track? So that's the third thing, is that dashboard, to make sure they know what dials to turn, or what dials to turn up or down, or whatever it might be, to get them where they want to go.
So when you're providing CFO service, and it's easy just to talk about your business, right?
Yeah.
And highlight it, but in general, the fractional CFO and maybe your business specifically, like, are you providing bookkeeping? And I heard you say it is like you kind of like bifurcate bookkeeping and CFO work. That I think that's a big point that people miss. It's one thing to be
past versus future.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's a big point that people need to recognize. So, like, if a client comes to you, do you say, well, here's my set of bookkeepers and here's my set of CFO people? Or do you still suggest the business owner makes those transactions? Or what does that look like?
Yeah. I always, because I'm such a focused person, I started for the first 4 years of this business only offering CFO services, where you only get the CFO. If you have your bookkeeper, we'll manage them or whatever. Actually, it was very recently, within the last year or two, where we brought our own bookkeepers in house. But I never give someone just bookkeeping. So if you come to me as a fractional CFO, you have to have a CFO that's managing. I feel like that's the secret sauce. So that way you don't just get a bookkeeper who goes in, screws everything up if they don't know real estate investing. And then you come back to us with a $10,000 cleanup job of like, now we've got to get you caught up and to where we're just current. So we have the numbers. So my core service, you get the CFO. And then if you need bookkeeping, we have it. If you need the CPA and tax strategy planning, we have it. But our core offering is the financial business management with a CFO.
Yeah, and I think that's overlooked a lot in real estate, because now you've worked for a big company, and I'm sure you see a lot of companies, but a lot of people just kind of treat it like, I swear, every time we record a podcast, my landscapers show up. I apologize. It's hilarious. It doesn't matter what time of day.
Right? Yes.
Anyway, so I apologize for background noise, but with that being said, like, a lot of people treat real estate like a hobby for whatever reason. And there's some really big companies that treat it like a hobby, and there's really small guys that treat it like a hobby. Like, what can people do to stop that and really understand the business? Like, maybe it is like, what's a business report that people should be looking on a daily basis to start treating it truly like a business and just not a collection of properties?
I really think what you even just raising that awareness, that stop looking at it like a hobby. I don't care how many properties you have, it is a business and you are a business owner. Like, first they have to identify as that, so then they'll want to pursue the things that business owners do. No one is born a great business owner. Business ownership are skills that are acquired in order to be the business owner that you should be for your company. And that's where you learn marketing, sales, operations, finance, and at least having a handle on those things and knowing how those things intertwine. As far as like being a business owner and how can they feel that, if you do start to understand the financial side and just get clarity on three numbers, like I say, these are the three most important numbers. If you want to feel like a business owner and you want to be an actual business owner that is someone that goes out there and gets things done and also puts money in your pocket, you know what you make, spend, and keep. Like, it's really simple, but most owners, I don't care if, like you said, big business, small business, who has come through our doors, we have a call. Most people cannot give us those three numbers to the penny. What did you make last month? What did you spend, and where did you spend it? And how much did you actually get to put in your pocket? Like, that's the three numbers that I would say, if you can do that, that's what Profit First covers a lot too on the cash flow side. But those are like, that's the first thing to get a handle on as a business owner, is your cash. And where are those three numbers going? Like, what are you making, spending, and keeping?
Yeah, well, I think one of the challenging things that a lot of these real estate investors that are hobbyists, let's
Yeah.
call it, accounting's not all that easy for them, right? Like this isn't an income and expense business; it's asset and liability, and we like it's not. Let's just put it this way: it's not all that easy to do, right? My lending business is mostly income and expense, unless we have REO and stuff like that, right? So that's a fairly easy thing. But when we owned, a bunch of rental properties and we were flipping houses and stuff, we learned it the hard way as well by, you know, the way we originally mapped the system was not accurate until we learned it. And, a lot of real estate investors, they're doing it the wrong way. And in their defense, it's hard, right? So like you need someone in place, in essence to help them. And some bookkeeper that knows QuickBooks probably might not even be the best solution for them.
Right.
Um, and then maybe their CPA, but then their CPA is probably going to be expensive. Who knows? I mean, you got to have real conversations with your CPA. Like you said, like it's not just what happened in the past. It's also like, hey, let's plan for the future. In your experience, like what size? I mean, even if you're a one man operation, you need someone that that understands this and skill sets. And I get that. Well, but at the same time, like I would guess on your end, it's a hard sell to sell somebody that does a few deals a year just based on cost. Like they're penny pinching on everything. So like they're not going to, take on additional payroll staff, whatever it is. What size operation makes sense for having some sort of fractional CFO?
This is why I started teaching profit first too, because you can do that yourself as an entrepreneur from deal one. Like that's why to me it's cash flow management. Every entrepreneur does cash flow management. It's literally bank balance accounting, what most people do. Like, because like you said, accounting is hard. They're not going to school for accounting and bookkeeping and that type of thing. They're going out there and getting deals done. So that's why I teach that, because it's a cash flow system that makes it simple for the entrepreneur. As far as a CFO though, and your question there, if you're making around $300,000 a year in gross profit, so like more top line, that's if you're fixing and flipping, that's probably 5 to 10 deals a year, depending on your market. So we have plans for as low as that, but our average client right now does 1.4 million in gross profit. So if you're at the 7-figure mark and you don't know where your numbers are going, number one, you're not alone. Like lots of people can get to 7 figures without anything in place, but then usually stuff is on fire all the time because they don't know their numbers. But I would say you start at that $300,000 mark, and then that's when you can start looking into even a part-time CFO because of different plans and just being able to meet with someone that actually knows what's going on and can give you forward-facing numbers.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think. You just said it is like there's a lot of businesses out there that make a lot of money, and it's just a dumpster fire. And it's funny because a lot of people think they have it all put together, but like
Yeah.
there's a place where it's like I'm more jealous of the one man band that like they got 30 million in assets and they do their thing and they got their cash coming in and it's simple. And then you look at these other guys like, oh man, they got it figured out and they're a mess.
Right.
And a lot of that's leadership. What do you think the catalyst is for a lot of people to be like, shoot, like, well, I just did not curse on my own show. It's impressive. Like shit, like I really need this bad. Like, what's usually the catalyst for someone to approach you?
Usually it's either they haven't filed taxes in forever, or they don't have any books, or the bookkeeping is a mess and they come to us and they're like, I have no idea what I'm doing and I'm making too much money to feel broke. Like, what the
Yeah.
heck is going on here? So that's usually the big catalyst for it. I will say, because of getting the profit first message out there, there's some people that are proactive of like, I want to be proactive with like, I know the deals I'm doing about 10 a year. Like, let me get this in place so I have good habits. Cause like once you get the habits in place, you can go further and farther. But usually those first two are the big catalysts of like, I have no idea what's going on with the numbers and I'm getting too big not to know what's going
Yeah.
on with my numbers.
Yeah, yeah. It seems like I don't know. I'm trying to relate this service to real estate investors that I know that I think could utilize and things like that. And
Yeah.
I do loans for a lot of real estate investors all over the place, and you know I know what their numbers and their books sometimes are, and they're
Yeah.
not all that rosy as they think. And to me, like I think a lot of them, even if they believe that they have stuff in place, I think there's a lot of tax strategies, tax accounting that they might not know. Does the CF, does is stuff like that, depreciation, stuff like that covered, through CFOs, or is that more like a tax accountant, which is a separate party that they would need?
Right. That's usually where our CPA side would come into play because you need to have that tax strategist. That's a tax strategist and planner. A lot
Yep.
of people put the bucket of CFO and that hat onto different people in their life, like a bookkeeper. Like they're literally asking the bookkeeper who does transactions to translate all this stuff for them. And they're like, I'm not getting what I want from the bookkeeper. But then for the CPA too, they ask the CPA, can you give me some of the forward facing, give me this stuff? And the CPA literally just wants to file your taxes and like make sure that you stay out of the orange jumpsuit. And if they're a strategist, they'll be like, well, I'll tell you how this fits into the tax plan. That's
Right.
where a tax CPA comes into play, like making sure that they're a strategist, where a CFO is more of the business financial management. How do we make sure, number one, I've connected you to the right CPA and strategist so you are paying the least amount in taxes, but then how am I also making sure you're getting paid as the owner and you also have the cash flow? And when you want to hire this person, what does that do to your overall, percentages and margins and everything like that? That's where a CFO is more the business overall strategy, where a CPA or a tax strategist is for that tax specifically and that planning.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I think to get some sort of sophistication there makes sense. We've grinded it out, and just listening to you, I'm like, this seems like interesting. Because we know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know, right? Like we're
Right.
two dumb
Yeah.
firemen that have almost $100 million in real estate. And we're like, well, how'd that happen? And we listen to the accountant, and we've used like YouTube University. I think the guy Income Digs does a pretty good job for those that are trying to like one off it and like really trying to get your books in order.
Yeah.
We did, from a profit first standpoint. I can't remember if I read yours or the original book. I want to say I read yours. But that related to us right when we were implementing YNAB, and like there's another guy on YouTube that really talks about using that for the profit first. It's all like at home tricks. And there's something about even just connecting this to some other books we've read recently of like Who Not How and Dan Martell's Buying Back Your Time is like, you guys concentrate on this 100% of your day. Like, this is your life. This is your world. Like you said, you're so dedicated to it. It's like,
Yeah.
man, sometimes it almost makes more sense to let a professional do it. So you're paying for a service, but you're paying for someone who like really cares about this one subject matter. And I
Yeah.
think that's interesting. So,
Yeah.
um,
I'm a big Keith Cunningham fan. He wrote The Road Less Stupid. Great book. I love that book. And he's like, a lot of people are stuck in business adolescence. It's like they're great at marketing and sales, but at some point you have to grow up as a business owner. And I feel like what he's talking about there is like if you hire a CFO or fractional, like you're pushing and shoving yourself into CEO seat because now you've actually hired a C-suite type person just on a part-time basis. So now you actually have to have a leadership meeting. Like you have to become a leader to be able to manage that CFO, but then the CFO should be able to talk to you at a leadership level too. So it helps that when you ask that question about a hobbyist, the real estate hobbyists out there, even the people that are doing lots of deals, sometimes it's having that outside perspective from someone who's not emotionally attached to every single deal that you're doing to be able to say, is this what you really want? Like, if you spend all the money on this deal and you have $0 in your bank account, would you rather sleep at night or pay a few dollars more in interest? It's like being able to have someone there that just gives you that other perspective where ultimately you're still King Arthur sitting at the table. Now you've just got knights around you helping you make the decision, but you still wear the crown. So that's where it takes you, like I said, a violent shove into the CEO territory, getting someone like that on the team.
Yeah. You know, what do you think kind of, and even though we don't typically do selling stuff on this show, like I think this is an important statement. Like, what do you think like the 4 or 5 selling tools would be to a real estate investor that's kind of unsure if they need this, like things that this this fractional CFO would do for them,
Oh,
like
yeah, for
for
sure.
something like that.
Number one is the bookkeeping nightmare of managing that. Like, who is your bookkeeper? Oh, so many people come to us and they're not sure about their bookkeeper. Is this the right person? Are they really doing what I want them to do? How do I get them, to give me what I want on a consistent basis? So, number one, taking the headache off of bookkeeping management and getting the right person in there, whether it's our people or just managing your own team. That's a huge one for most people because they want numbers, they want clarity, but they don't know how to get it. I would say another big selling point is profit first, like actually implementing that, because that's not just a tactic of the bank accounts and like being intentional with your money. It's also a mindset, like making sure, are you getting what you want cash wise from the business? And are we building the business around profitability and not the other way around? Just how many deals can we do? So that's another big one. I would say another one is what we were talking about here, is someone that you can go to whenever you want to hire someone, when you want to do a new marketing campaign, if you want to take on another vendor, like someone on the team that you can go to for any big financial decision to say, how does this fit into everything? I want to hire this COO. I want to hire this person. I want to hire this admin for myself. How does this affect my bottom line or the margins? Like being able to plan effectively is another huge one that people say they feel the best when they work with us, of like being able to have that third party knowing, like, and have their back on the profitability side. Our dashboard is a big selling point too, because it goes through, and we literally built it, a lot of it, for the real estate world. So if you're a fix and flipper, like we have a specific tab on there, like how much do you have out on the properties on loans? And like, are you going to have enough loans to cover the rest of your project and the rehabs? Or like, are we going to have to go and get more? Or where are we going to get that money from? It's like making sure you have the cash, because people in the flip world can build themselves out of business the quickest, because they're doing too many projects at one time. So we have stuff like that, stoplight report that's on there, like red, yellow, green. Like, here's the areas that we see, like you're doing great at, like the sales and conversion cycle, but like the actual keeping the money, maybe payroll's too much, or maybe this is too much. Or like, now we've got to focus on this. It's red, it's red or yellow. So we've got stuff like that on the dashboard too, because we distill the financial statements into a very simple dashboard and report, so that way the owners can see it. So there's a few of the selling points of working with the CFO.
And how regularly, maybe not necessarily like hours, but like how regularly is the owner of the company communicating with the CFO? Like, how is that ongoing, relationship?
When you work with us, we have two different plans. One is bi-weekly meetings with the CFO, and one is weekly meetings, depending on your level of what you're making and how many entities you have, all that stuff. But we say less than bi-weekly is going to probably run you out of business if you're getting too big, because like you need to be looking at the numbers at least a couple times a month. But then they can also reach out to the CFO. Like if a deal comes across their plate in between those meetings or whatever, that's where constant communication can be happening with the CFO of, hey, I'm buying this deal, or I'm thinking of hiring this person. Can you run this? Or, hey, I'm buying this portfolio. Can you run this pro forma for me, of like seeing what it would come out to be? So the communication can be constant, but that's where the meeting schedule, we want to have a high level financial meeting at least bi-weekly or weekly.
And I think a lot of that gets missed. Everybody wants to talk about the deals they're doing. Nobody wants to sit down and talk about the numbers that are actually coming through, whether you're a one-man band or you have a partnership. Everybody wants to, oh, what's next? What's next? What's next? Or how's our projects performing? But performance is more than just occupancy and cash in the front door.
Exactly.
Let's switch gears just a little bit, because I know we hammered
sure.
this like home, and I really appreciate it, because I think it's going to be valuable to a lot of people. But how did you even wind up writing the book for Profit First? Like, what was that connection there, man? How'd that happen?
So after that company blew up, I already had the inkling that this was a big problem. Then I went and worked with another investor in the Richmond, Virginia area, and he was a much smaller business, doing maybe one deal a month, if that, in flips, and he had a few rentals too in his portfolio. And it was the same thing when I went in there. Didn't know his numbers, didn't know what he made, spent, kept like simple stuff, had the wrong bookkeeper. It was a total nightmare mess. So even before I had started this company, I just helped him clean that up, helped him like clean it up, get clarity on where his cash was. A lot of his cash was tied up in his own houses and the rentals. Like he was only 30% loan to value, and he's like, oh, well, that's where all my money is then. So it's like being able to help him refinance and get and pull his money back out. He told me one time in a meeting, like, this has been life changing, just to know where my numbers are. And I have the power to change those numbers now and be in control of my cash and have that confidence. I'm like, Dane, simple CFO. Like, I can do this. I can provide simple, like, clarity to people and give them the power of their business back in their hands. that's when a mentor of mine called me because he said, I heard you're starting this company. You should read Profit First. So I got that recommendation from a mentor. I read that book in one evening and said, boom, this is the cash flow system I want to implement with every client that I work with. So we did that from day one. And Simple CFO, the very first client, started implementing Profit First. And that's where it started racking up clients and being able to help more people and being able to actually get Profit First in a lot of these companies. And it was working. It was working from the mindset point of view where they were able to go in there and do it themselves, but then also like putting money in their pocket and like sending them on vacations and like feeling financial freedom. So then I reached out to Mike Michalowicz with an email like 9 months into it. And I said, hey, I'm having good success. I've done lots of deals. Like, I feel like I could write Profit First for real estate investing. Cause like you said, Jason, like it's an asset and liability space. And it's not just a coaching industry. Like there's just income, expenses, bottom line. So I said, there's enough nuance. What do you think? And so we got on a call and he said, yeah, let's do it. And I got his blessing. And then wrote the book, and it came out 18 months later after a lot of writing, editing, and hard work. And then it came out in December 2021. It was definitely the biggest project of my life.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's awesome. And just to think that, like it's not just like I think a lot of people talk about like, oh, I wish I could do this or I wish I could do that. It's like, well, you're just doing. We always say put the property first, and it'll all work out, right? Like if you do the right thing by the property, everything else will work out correctly. It's the same thing as you're just doing the right thing. You found a cash flow system that worked, and it's like, yeah, let me reach out to the guy. That's a pretty cool story, man. So that's awesome, and I think you're going to help a lot of people that understand it. And I guess with the Profit First, because we didn't really get much into that, is like I think it takes discipline. And a lot of people aren't disciplined. They just want the cash. Cash comes in, they spend it on something. They go borrow money from Jason again for the next project. They're strapped for cash. They wait till that one refinances or sell. Then they got cash again. What do you think with the Profit First? Like, if you had to tell people this is the one thing you should take away from this book, or like the one thing that you should implement in your business from this Profit First thing or skill set, what do you think that is?
So I'll give you the tactical side of it. We've beat up all the other sides of it.
Yeah.
Profit First at the bottom line is super simple. It is literally the envelope method. Like if you've ever heard of the envelope method in your personal finances, or if you need a budget, things like that, it's very much similar, but just for business. You're literally opening business checking accounts and naming every dollar instead of having the big black hole bank account where your money gets sucked in and sucked right back out, and you never see it again. Set up specific bank accounts. In the book, I tell you a bunch of the different, bank accounts to open up. I would tell you simply from this podcast, can you set up one account and call it the keep account, where like you're just not spending everything you're making? Like that's how you say you want financial freedom. Like anyone who's listening to this podcast, you get into real estate, you become an entrepreneur, financial freedom comes into that pure, your view at some point. And that just is specific to you. This is how you achieve true financial freedom is you go out there, make the money, and you have an account there to help keep it as well too. And that's where you can build discipline in. The book gives you other ways as well too. Like you could set up the full system in different bank accounts and name them different things, and put some of the profit in the keep accounts like at a different bank, so that way it's harder to touch, and make sure there's no online access. Like you can build some stuff in yourself if you want to get more advanced. But I tell people just start with the first thing. Like just open one bank account and like put a certain percentage in there from every deal and just don't touch it. Like just start to build that discipline so you can prove it to yourself that you can do it. That's where it starts, and then you can go from there.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. One thing that worked for us was, we would tell other business owners, like, we just pay ourselves weekly. They're like, weekly? What are you talking about? I'm like, well, it's what works for us.
Works.
And that was like the immediate thing. Now it's like, okay, well, now we have this thing to curate and take care of to make sure we have a nest egg to continually pay us on a weekly basis. So just little simple things. I'm not a huge Dave Ramsey guy. My business partner is. That's probably where some of this all started to work together, from his personal life spilled over into our company. But the envelope method works, man. And it really works. Jay, you have a good saying for it. When we were flipping houses, it was what, third, and a third, for yourself, for your business, and for your taxes. A lot of people just don't tax plan properly. It all goes together.
Yeah, so many
Exactly.
people commingle everything, all their deals, all
Oh,
everything.
yeah.
They don't know what they have. And
Oh yeah,
I
I
mean, and
flipped a
listen,
house. Let me put it all back into a rental property. Bro, you're
yeah,
gonna have
like
to pay
bro,
taxes.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. I mean, and listen, when you're in business long enough, like, you also kind of, it makes it a little bit easier starting out, and you're not 100% sure. Just keep everything organized, and then you'll learn real quick. We know inside our business, for the most part, if we're going to take like a big quarterly distribution, we know, approximately, where we're at.
Yeah.
Take what we can take, and the last thing you want to do is own a business, and then a year later you got to do a capital contribution. That's no fucking
Right. No, that's not
never.
fun.
We haven't had to do that in 17 years since we started, and I don't ever want to do that. So
Yeah.
you
That's good
you
stuff.
figure out ways to do it, and keep it serious. And yeah, I mean, I think this is, like Ian was saying, a very important service. And I've heard a lot about, I'm glad we had this conversation, because I've heard a lot about fractional CFOs, and I think that it makes a lot of sense for most for most business owners and real estate investors. Just out of curiosity, like, what's for everyone to know, like, what's average pricing plans for something like this? Like, what can they expect?
Oh, sure. It depends on how big you are, but our pricing plans range from about 1,500 a month to that. We have some people that are doing serious, like over $10 million, on actual
Yep.
revenue and like gross profit net stuff, and they can get up to the $6, 7, $8,000 a month there.
Yeah.
But 1,500 and
Still very
$3,000.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Still very reasonable.
Yep.
I mean, what's the average CFO across America cost?
It's about 250 to 300 grand a year.
Yeah. Yeah, not cheap. And like Ian said, like, his partner kind of acts as a CFO. My partner acts as our CFO, and neither of our partners do everything for the full CFO job. Just like, whatever roles we're in the business, we're not doing the full stuff, but they acted it. But like, most operations don't necessarily have that personality type of
Right.
wanting to do that, wanting to even do that stuff, or being serious about it. And even if they do, they're probably not doing the full gamut. Like, it makes sense to, potentially add that or entertain it. So no, I mean, I think this is great. Ian, any other questions for David?
No, I mean, you saw we were rapid firing because me and Jay were going back and forth, going, man, this is really cool. Dave, what normally we ask everybody, what's one good book or podcast? You've dropped a few throughout here. We'll get all them in here, but do you have one book or podcast that you think everybody else should go listen to besides the 2 or 3 that you've already dropped?
Well, I would just reiterate my favorite book of all time, business wise, is The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham. Like, if you don't pick up that book, you're part of that title there. Just kidding. Like, go out there and get The Road Less Stupid, because that one is, if you want to think like a business owner, he teaches you how to think. And then he also teaches you the questions to ask when you run into trouble. Not the answers to give you, but the questions to ask, because it's the better questions yield better answers. So I would pick that one up.
Yeah, we'll get that in the show notes, and I'm going to add it to my list of reads because I have not read that one, and I don't want to be on one of the stupid ones. But it's always, we talk about whether it's high level or simple day one stuff. It's always good to re-listen and block and tackle and just reiterate the important things. Dave, where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to learn more about what you're doing or see what you got going on.
You mind if I give the book? Can
Yeah,
give
let
the
her
book.
know. Go ahead.
So if they want to download the book, they can go to simplecfo.com/gift. So you go there, you can grab the book, you can grab a time slot with our team if you would like to, if we can help, but that's where you can grab the book and also a Profit First cheat sheet. Because if I flew through that too quick, that gives you more of like the breakdown of how to start implementing Profit First as a business owner, whether you're day one, like you said, or if you've done 1,000 deals.
Yep. Implement it and go from there. You'll be much more happy. So,
I have more money
we
too.
appreciate you, brother. And it was really fun conversation. And we will catch you guys on the next one.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.